On this episode of Tough Garage, we epoxied the shell and installed the rear suspension.
Epoxy as hell? Who are you calling Epoxy?
Epoxy the shell, you numbnut.
Yeah, you're lucky, mate.
So now it was time to bare metal the outside of the shell. The same process I had used for the undercarriage. So first a chemical paint stripper and then the wire wheel wherever it was needed. It was a very hard and very long process, not just because I did all the shell and all the hanging panels, but because of all the multiple layers of old paint that were on the car. Plus all the undersides of all the hanging panels, which are a complete pain to do. Once the whole shell and everything was bare metaled, I then painted the whole lot in 2K epoxy etch primer. This is how the car sits at the moment, that you can see behind me, this white epoxy. That's what's on it at the moment. No body work has been done on the panels at the moment, so the only work that's been done are some of the body mods that I've mentioned. The front suspension was already on, but the diff still needed to go in. So I painted the springs and the rear suspension arms all in 2K satin black. So the upper and lower rear suspension arms have been plated in through mill plate just to strengthen them up. The plating stops the arms from twisting, which is a common problem in Cortinas. I've actually seen quite a few of them twisted up. I also installed a brand new set of Super Pro pushers into them. So after being on the rotisserie for 5 years, it was time to come off and go back on its wheels. Yes! So after installing the diff, the car was now on all 4 wheels. The springs that are in the car are king springs. There's super lows at the rear and 4-cylinder lows at the front. So after the car was on the ground, I then pulled the whole steering shaft out of the car, pulled it apart, checked that everything was 100%, and put it all back together, prepped it and painted it in satin black and put that back in. I keep mentioning satin paint, but what is satin paint and what's the difference with other paints?
The difference between flat, satin and gloss paints is their ability to reflect light. Flat or matte paints don't reflect any light. Flat paints are usually used in interior panels. Satin paints are usually found on engines or driveline parts. They reflect some light. Flat or satin paints can be quite hard to maintain or touch up. If used on exterior panels, they cannot be buffed as they become glossy or patchy. Gloss paints are used on all exterior panels and reflect all light.
Okay.
They are also much easier to touch up and maintain.
So now I moved on to the engine bay. The first thing to do was the master cylinder and booster. So now that I'm at the stage I can actually show you the work other than just photos, let's go take a look. So working with the original design of the booster bracket, I made a similar bracket just much shorter to allow a lot of clearance. Hopper Stoppers recommended this small Gemini booster as a nice, small but effective unit. They also recommended this 1-inch XB master. I also bent up my own brake lines just to keep everything as neat as possible. I used cushion clamps to mount the brake lines here and there, and joiners just to keep the maintenance of the lines nice and simple, plus installation.
Today on Leo's Life Lessons, getting different ideas for your project. Coming up with different ideas or doing mods on your project can sometimes be not copying someone or coming up with an original idea can sometimes be tricky. Go to car shows and have a real good look at the cars on display. Look through some car magazines as well. These can be great as you can look back at them at hand and study carefully. Even wrecking yards that you can walk through can be great as you can find a specific part that you need. Sometimes a mix of different ideas can be the answer. Some cars have themes. What theme are you after? Coming up with a unique idea can be very difficult, but very satisfying and rewarding. Whatever the idea, be proud of it. That's it for today's Leo's Life Lessons. Triple O out. Wait, there's a smudge on the camera lens. A bit.
That's it for this episode. On the next episode, we start the engine bay mods and refit the engine.
Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and hit that bell for video notifications.
On this episode of Tough Garage, we epoxy the shell and install the rear suspension.
Epoxy as hell? Who are you calling Epoxy?
Epoxy as hell. Yeah, let's try that again. So I keep mentioning satin paint, but what is the difference with satin paints and different other paints? Just explain. Oh.
Flat paints are usually used in interior designs, I think.
Interior
Panels. If used on exterior panels, they can become... Oh wait, did I just say exterior or posterior?
No. Yeah.
Gloss paints are used on all exterior panels. Gloss paints are used on all
Experion? Who's Experion? They also specified a 1-inch XB master booster. Master cylinder.
Not copying someone or coming up with original ideas can sometimes be tricky. That's it for today's Leo's Life Lessons. Triple O out.
Okay, hey, again with the stutter rap. Yeah, 100 miles an hour. So that's it for this episode. On the next episode,
we do what?
we start the engine bay mods and refit the engine. That's it for this episode. On the next episode, we start the engine bay mods and refit the engine.
Please like, subscribe, leave a comment, and tap that notifications bell for video notifications.